Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take a DNA test to keep inheritance? I, 25 male, am having a clash of morals and obligations and would like an outside perspective. When I was 13, my parents passed away, and I was raised by my paternal grandparents. It was the easiest choice since they lived in the same area when my parents were alive and visited them frequently. I am my grandparents' only grandchild, as my aunt, 43 female, is child-free, so when they passed on, they left me their house. The current total value of the house is around $500,000, and that's lowballing the estimate, and it's fully paid off, so I basically have a really good head start in life, although I could never imagine selling it. Recently, I was approached by a man, 38 male, John, claiming to be my grandfather's son and would like a DNA test to verify it. I was shocked and didn't believe him and told him to frack off, because that would mean that my grandfather cheated on my grandmother. He also contacted my aunt, and she recognized him as the neighbor's kid who moved away years ago. Apparently, my grandparents were friends with his parents, but then one day there was a huge fight, and the couple moved away. John stated that his mom had an affair with my grandfather, and when the husband found out, he divorced his mom, and they were forced to sell the house. John said that his mom's husband wanted nothing to do with him since he wasn't sure if he was the father and abandoned him. Years later, John tracked him down and after a DNA test, confirmed that he wasn't the father. John's mom confessed that the only other possible candidate was my grandfather. John's mom insisted her ex was the father for years. My aunt lives in another country, so John has been asking me to do a DNA test so that he can finally know for sure who his father is. I was willing to do it until my girlfriend, 26 female, brought up the issue of ownership of the house. I did a quick check, and if the DNA test proves that John is indeed my grandfather's son, he might be able to sue for a share of the estate. If it came down to it, I would be forced to sell my home because there's no way I could buy out even a third of the share if John wanted it. I contacted John and said that I would be more than willing to do a DNA test, but only under the condition that he sign away any rights or claims to the house if he's proven to be my grandfather's son via paperwork that my lawyer or lawyers will draw up. I didn't hear from John for days, but then got an angry call from a woman claiming to be his wife who called me greedy and selfish, that I couldn't possibly know that pain of not knowing who my father is, and that my grandfather owes John. I hung up on her and contacted a lawyer. So far, unless John can present enough evidence to create doubt, he doesn't have much of a case, especially since the possible father is already deceased. While I'm content with never giving John what he wants until he waives his rights, and my aunt won't either, his wife has begun stalking me on social media and putting me on blast. Am I the a-hole? Edit to add, just in case this wasn't clear, and to give more info, my aunt is aware that everything supports what I'm doing. My grandparents' will was very clear. Once they passed the house, my aunt got their life insurance policy. We split the remainder of the savings, and sentimental items were to be given to the designated people. There was no mention of giving anything for a possible secret long-lost child. My grandparents were cremated, so John wouldn't be able to even request that my grandfather be dug up for a test, although my aunt and I haven't told him that. I did initially block his wife, but she created other accounts. I'm an American and live in the USA. Are you the a-hole? I mean, there has to be some discussion on this. Is this guy just looking for peace of mind into who his father is? Or is this some kind of scam to try and get some money out of you? It sounds like the wife is the one that's pushing this whole thing about getting the house. Like, what does that have to do with the peace of mind or the pain of not knowing who your father is? It's very hard to say on this. You're not quite the a-hole. I mean, I think it's good that you're at least doing something to protect yourself and not just going along with this person, especially with this wife in the picture. It's very hard to know this guy's true intentions. What do you think? Story 2. Mother emotionally and intellectually manipulates son for years. Turns psychotic when she realizes that her throwing the kid out after an argument dooms the entire rest of the family. I'm the 27-male-year-old lad of this story. I'm considered a high-functioning autistic individual, officially disabled by government standards. My mother, for a long time, but specifically these past 4 years, has been taking in and managing my checks from the government to keep the household afloat, making use of everything but $100 of it, which often got absorbed in moments of crisis as well since I didn't spend much. And while doing so, was sowing seeds of doubt and fear into my mind about ever learning to live on my own, stating I was very far from ever reaching that. I myself didn't really try to struggle or push my way out. Even when I turned 18, she offered to sign me up as a dependent, but I thankfully declined, decided for the good of the family to keep working with them. That changed about 4 years ago. 4 years ago, my developmentally held back brain decided to say, oh, now it's time to teenager. And I suddenly craved independence, looking every which way for a way to flee gracefully. Every time, though, there was some unfortunate situation or action that meant that if I left with my 2 incomes, my mother became my PSW, which that has its own irony later on. The family would fall apart, and I'd be dooming all the animals, some of which were never listed on our lease at the time and were hidden every inspection. Now, what happens when you cage a teenager that so desperately wants to be their own thing? They get rebellious. 3 years ago, I got a therapist through my state insurance program, and after venting all the hoops my mom was making me jump through, and all the work that was piled on me due to mother's bum knee, and the stupid high expectations of me that would always end up creating screaming matches to her over these 3 years, she finally said to me, as of roughly a week ago from this post, "That literally sounds like an abuse case." I initially dismissed that and say, I'll keep that in mind, as we ended the call that day, only to then, immediately after, get chewed out for jumping on a request my mom made earlier in the day, as she has requested research for something that'd make another lengthy story. But regardless, she basically chewed me out for hounding her in an ill mental state due to the current situation, despite telling me 5 minutes prior to do the research for her. That's when I went back to my room and texted my therapist to start filling out the paperwork. 1 day later, Mom and I got into another spat, this time about the dishes, which were my daily chore. Sure, it was assigned to me, but my drive to do stuff for her was gone by that point, when my effort could be shot down on a whim even though it was ordered. The argument is hazy in my head for many reasons, but the main one is Mom went feral the moment I snarked like a teen would. She slammed her way into my room and started grabbing stuff and hucking it on the lawn, screaming for me to get out, breaking one of my monitors in the process. Dad stepped in and told her that since I was over 18 and on the lease, that I was legally given 30 days notice, which is when she stopped, turned to me and said, "Well, then I'm going to make those next 30 days hell for you," and walked to her room. Dad let me get a few things. She did get on the lawn back inside at that point, and I sat down at my chair. Then it dawned on me. She played herself. For years, she said that if I went away, she would have to get rid of everything, and I mean everything. It was all propped up by my SSI and the income she got being my personal support worker. Well, now she had given me and the government valid reason with her behavior alone that even if she rescinded the 30-day notice that we couldn't keep our home anyways. It was refreshing. In that moment, I felt courage well up in my chest. She couldn't manipulate me anymore. She fell into what she made of her life and was blind to my connections I made for years outside the family, constantly slamming them for being liberals. I took that renewed energy to reach out to those friends, those found families, my lovers, even my grandparents. I looked through my cards and emails and found my disabilities care workers info and told of the situation, and burnt the midnight oil chasing my new life while my mom literally pounded the adjacent wall between my bedroom and her bathroom, screaming like a banshee about not hearing me pack fast enough. To keep this from going on for ages, I'm going to be brief on the next few stages until now. Grandparents saw this explosion brewing for years, opened arms, and let me take my belongings and my bearded dragon pancake in while mother was away on psychiatric care. With my caseworker's help, I got my SSDI under control, I got guidance on what steps to take next, and they're doing research for intermediary places after my grandparents. Me and my boyfriend are looking into joining together and living somewhere in Washington, with my found family chipping in as well. As of today, I'm officially disowned from my family. My mother has not only disowned my grandparents, but also forced Dad to as well. I tried to contact them to drop me off the phone plan so I can keep my phone number, and all I got was the statement of disownment and that further contact will lead to a restraining order. I got a special state-related order to have their firearms reclaimed since mother is a psychopath, and have my grandparents locking their doors now out of fear. I'm waiting for my case manager to get back to me to have my documents extracted from their residence, and basically, all I gotta do is play the waiting game. Watching my parents burn because mom pushed all their connections away. Even my brother, who's stoic as all hell, showed he was ready to fly too. So the main thing to take away from this is, learn to value yourself and judge the words of those even closest to you, for you never know if you're just a pig to your own mother. If people want, I can refine those breezed over parts, but that's enough to get the picture. P.S. As I was printing the paperwork to file for the firearm removal, I realized I still had access to the printer back home. It took all my willpower not to print a "frack you" message to it, and instead I just disconnected my PC from the web-accessible printer. Despite blaming me for everything falling apart, she was the one who kicked me out, and I was always taught to not have the last word. Day 2. I've softly realized that if I'm going to be posting an update, it's best to do both a comment version and an addition to the original post we're editing. Long story short, the paperwork I filed in just turned in. Got a court time in about 2 hours. Zero court experience whatsoever, so I'm going by the seat of my pants. If it goes well through my grandparents, I can sleep a little safer knowing that if they get retaliatory, they'll have to do it with sticks and stones and not 100% pure American freedom, if you catch my drift. Day 2, Part 2. Keeping it brief because video planned. Extreme risk protection order dismissed. Judge said I was polite and concise, but officially there was not enough evidence. High bar of standard for that petition. Getting in talks with Grandpa to see if his lawyer can rephrase all this better to the court. Day 2, Part 3. I finished the video, huzzah! And it only got split in half because the audio messed up. Day 3. Look, Ma, I made it on TV. I'm mildly famous. Really, that's the best thing to take from it. Learn to value yourself. Take a look at your relationships. And definitely do some research. If you feel like you're in a situation where you're being taken advantage of, you're not being valued, and if it's true you're not being valued, you hopefully you can make contacts outside of that situation. Many resources. I'm sure other people can provide stuff. If you need help, there are those that can help you. And this person was able to make a lot of friends outside of this, so I really think he's going to be fine. Story 3. Revenge on my wife was sweet. So, quick backstory. My soon-to-be ex-wife was having an affair with a coworker. I found out right before COVID. We were quarantined together, so did some work to reconcile. And then things started going back to normal. We were on vacation in Hawaii, and I had to use her phone to add her vaccine passport to return. I saw she was still in contact with AP and texted him the entire trip. At this point, I knew I was done. However, instead of blowing up and confronting her, I figured I needed to gather info and move on. So, I deleted the text thread and blocked his number. The next 24 hours before we left were amazing. She clearly knew I had removed his contact, but she couldn't confront me about it just in case I didn't. And it'd expose her still sleeping and talking to him. To watch her melt down over the next day and being jittery and frantic still brings a tear to my eye. Nothing was said on the many hours flight home, and she was shaking. She knew something was coming. Anyway, I waited 3 more days so I could set myself up to leave, and got the rest of those texts and hidden messages she had elsewhere. I'm just proud of myself for being calm, cool, and collected at probably the most painful moment of my life. She is but a memory now, and I have happily moved on. Ooh, that is sneaky. That is a way to let her know you know without saying anything. That was just truly a shrewd move. And she couldn't say anything without outing herself. That is amazingly nuts. I say well played. And well played to get some silence while you plan and moved out and moved on. Amazing.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 4. Want my section because I make more money? Go ahead. I'll still make more than you. This all happened about 18 years ago. I was a waitress for a village inn. I worked the morning shift because it had the most business. Now, this is back when smoking was still allowed in restaurants, and we had a smoking section and a non-smoking section. Our seating chart was designed with this in mind and never changed even after the restaurant went full non-smoking. Now, on Sunday, we had your wonderful church rush that would pack the entire place for hours. So Sunday was totally non-smoking until 3 p.m. On the weekends, we would have about 8 servers. This meant that the smoking side had 2, while the other side had 6. So if you worked the smoking side, you had 10 tables to take care of, while the other servers had 4. Management knew I was good at what I did and would always put me in the biggest section on Sunday, and I could take care of all 10 of the tables no problem. This caused anger from some of the newer servers, and they said it was because I always got the better section. Management came to me and told me what was going on. That's when we decided on malicious compliance. Okay, you can have my section next Sunday. I'll take care of this small section. But since I'm on the other side of the restaurant, I will not be able to help you much. I then got to enjoy a less stressful Sunday. I did my job like normal, turned my tables, and made a ton of money. The other server was running around like crazy and not getting much done. At the end of the shift, they learned that they made less than the week before because of how bad they were taking care of their tables, and the church crowd are horrible if you aren't taking care of them right. It was always great to hear the server say, "You can have your section back. I don't want it ever again." Now, this was not a one-time thing. This happened many times over the 5 years I've worked there. Every time it happened, I still made more money. Every time we would get a new server complaint, I just smiled and said, "Go ahead. Take my section. I could use a break." Right. It's not the work, it's the worker. Right? This person knew their job. They did their stuff well. Even with less, they made more. They were able to show it time and time again. Were these other subsequent complainers warned about what happened before? I think after 5 times, you would say, well, this has been proven 5 times again. Did these people even think about having to handle multiple tables like this? And it's just so funny that the church people were the worst people if they didn't get their service. Good luck getting them to learn lessons from church. Story 5. Call me a race traitor in a personal message online? Let's destroy your life. A few years ago, on a different account, I mentioned that I was in an interracial relationship. Someone else reached out to me and told me I was a race traitor and unfaithful to my race. I was like, what the hell, bro? I looked at his account. It was 6 years old, which told me his username was likely something he used a lot. So I started Googling his username at Gmail, at Yahoo, etc., and I found a match with Hotmail. A guy by the name of, let's say, Jeff, was selling some NFL game tickets and had posted his email. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's the same person. However, in the post, he mentioned a city in America and that he was a fan of a particular football team. I went through the online user post history. He posted quite a bit in the respective city. He mentioned going to NFL games, and in another post, he also said he was born in Canada. So through the ad for the NFL ticket, I figured out his real name. I found his biography on his employer's website. He was a senior-level manager, so they had a bio for him. In that bio, they mentioned he was born in Canada, was a fan of said NFL team, and loved living in the city. I also found his LinkedIn page during this time, so I sent him a connect request on LinkedIn, which he accepted. I figured he would because he had 500-plus connections, so here's what we know. His username matches his email handle. He likes the NFL team. He lives in a said city that he posts in said city's online forum. He was born in Canada. I then found his Facebook page. His Facebook page was public, and he posted what I would describe as semi-racist material. Also, his online page was significantly more racist. Based on the numerous connecting factors I determined, I created a report. I included his screenshots and links and summarized my findings in that report. Now, based on this person's position in his company, he likely had a significant role in deciding who this company employs. Also, his company clearly stated they were an equal opportunity employer. So I called their HR department, I found the number, and I called them, and I asked them, would you be concerned if a senior-level manager in your organization was a proud racist and degraded your equal opportunity employment practices? They were concerned. So I told them I had done an investigation into one of their senior-level managers and described him as a racist, and I had put together all my evidence and findings in a report and could email it over to them. I emailed them the report. A few weeks later, I called to get an update, and I was told they appreciated my report. However, they would have to comment on the status of their decision and make public statements in regard. Basically, thank you for letting us know, but we aren't going to tell you a thing. That's fine. So I waited another month, and I kept checking his LinkedIn page. Then one day, I saw a LinkedIn post from him in which he said he is looking for a new opportunity and if anyone has any positions open. So I messaged him on the online forum, and I told him, hey bro, heard you got fired. Just want you to know I'm the reason why. He threatened to find out who I was, hunt me down, intimately violate my spouse, and strangle me to death. So I reported him to the online admins who promptly banned him. Now, he really should have learned his lesson because guess what? He didn't connect the dots. He didn't know I could see all his LinkedIn activity. He didn't know who I was. He simply acted in rage. So I put his newest message in his folder and added it to the report because, you see, I can be an incredibly vindictive motherfracker. I checked his LinkedIn page once a week. Good news. He got another job. Bad news. Their HR department was also quite easy to get a hold of and discuss their new hire's online racist threatening behavior. However, let's just say I had a lovely conversation with this HR representative. She was a woman, and based on how she sounded and her name, I suspect she was a woman of color, so yeah. I'm not sure what happened after this, because a few weeks later, his internet history was cleaned up and his LinkedIn page was deleted. However, this company listed their senior management, which was what his position was. I never saw his name listed. What I suspect happened is after his HR reviewed my evidence, they terminated his employment with them. I would have totally gone after him a third time, but he got smart the second time around. Hey, by the way, Jeff, if you see this post, I'd love for you to send me a new message. I really enjoyed the little game I played with you. I also question, how did you handle getting fired from 2 jobs back to back on your resume and in future job interviews? Ooh! Oh, ho, ho. This is why you need to watch what you post online. You are the product. People, these online sites make money off of the personal information and making it public. And this is why you need to behave yourself. Oh my God. And yeah, not just make a dummy account to post this kind of goblin behavior. No, just don't do it. Don't do it. Be a better person. Just be a better person.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.